I woke up on my 30th birthday to the smell of fresh coffee and the weight of my husband's body shifting away from mine. The mattress dipped as Jake got up, and I stretched lazily, savouring the warmth of our bed, the promise of celebration hanging in the air like perfume. "Morning, birthday girl," he said, his voice carrying that familiar rasp that still made my stomach flutter after 7 years together. I watched him through half-closed eyes as he moved around our bedroom, admiring the way his shoulders looked in the soft morning light. "Do I smell coffee?" I asked, propping myself up on my elbows. "And maybe something else?" Jake smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. I should have noticed that then. I padded to the kitchen in my oversized sleep shirt, bare feet against the cool hardwood floors. Our apartment was flooded with morning light, dust motes dancing in the sunbeams that streamed through the windows. Jake had arranged a small spread on the kitchen island. Coffee, croissants from the bakery down the street, a small wrapped gift box. "You didn't have to do all this," I said, wrapping my arms around his waist from behind, pressing my cheek against his back. "It's your 30th, Bianca, it's a big one." His body felt rigid against mine. I released him and reached for the coffee, inhaling the rich aroma before taking a sip. Perfect, just the right amount of cream. 7 years and he still remembered exactly how I liked it. "Open your gift," he said, nodding toward the small box. I picked it up, surprised by its weight. "What is it?" "Just open it." I tore away the silver wrapping paper, revealing a velvet jewelry box. My heart skipped. We'd been talking about upgrading my engagement ring. Maybe he'd finally done it. I flipped open the lid, but instead of a ring, I found a USB drive. "What's this?" I asked, confused. Jake cleared his throat. "There are some documents on there. I thought it would be easier this way." "Documents? What kind of documents?" I laughed, though something cold was spreading through my chest. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Divorce papers." The mug slipped from my fingers, crashing to the floor. Coffee splashed across the tiles, across my bare feet. I didn't feel it. "Is this a joke?" My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "I'm sorry, Bianca. I've been trying to find the right time." "On my birthday? You thought my birthday was the right time?" The words scraped my throat raw. "I thought it would be better before the party. So, you'd have time to process. The party." 30 of our closest friends would be arriving at our apartment in less than 8 hours to celebrate my milestone birthday. The caterers would be here in 5. The cake, the decorations, the playlist I'd spent weeks perfecting, all of it suddenly seemed absurd. "Process what, exactly?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. Jake ran a hand through his hair. "It's not working anymore. It hasn't been for a long time. For you, maybe. I had no idea we were having problems." My voice cracked. 7 years, Jake. 7 years, and you couldn't give me any warning. "I tried. You never wanted to hear it." I searched my memory frantically. Had there been signs? Late nights at work, weekend trips with the guys, the gradual cooling of our physical relationship. I'd attributed it all to normal marriage evolution, to stress, to anything but this. "Who is she?" The question escaped before I could stop it. His silence was answer enough. "How long?" I pressed. "Bianca, how long?" He sighed. 8 months. 8 months. While I'd been planning our future, he'd been dismantling it. While I'd been faithful, he'd been... "Do I know her?" Jake looked away. "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me," I was shouting now, my whole body trembling. "This isn't about her. It's about us. We want different things. We want..." I stopped, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. "You've already discussed this with her." "What we want." He didn't deny it. I looked down at the USB drive in my hand, this tiny object that contained the end of everything I thought I knew. "You expect me to sign these today?" "Take your time. My lawyer said..." "Your lawyer?" I laughed, a hollow sound. "Of course you already have a lawyer." The doorbell rang, making us both jump. Jake checked his watch. "That's probably the caterers." "Are you kidding me right now? You want me to deal with caterers?" "I'll handle it," he said, moving toward the door. I grabbed his arm. "What am I supposed to tell everyone tonight? Thanks for coming to celebrate my 30th, by the way. My husband just left me. We can cancel. No. The word came out sharp, decisive. The party happens. You will be there, smiling, pretending everything is fine. You owe me that much. His eyes widened slightly. Bianca, one night, Jake. One night of pretending you didn't just destroy me on my birthday. After that, you can go to her. He hesitated, then nodded. As he went to answer the door, I stood frozen in our kitchen, coffee cooling around my feet, clutching the evidence of my husband's betrayal. I caught my reflection in the window, pale face, wide eyes, hair still mussed from sleep. I looked like a woman who had just been blindsided, because I had been. But as the caterers' voices filled our apartment, something shifted inside me. I watched Jake directing them, all smiles and charm, and wondered how many other performances I'd witnessed without recognizing them for what they were. I slipped the USB drive into my pocket. Tonight I would smile too. I would laugh and dance and accept birthday wishes. And tomorrow I would find out exactly what else my husband had been hiding. I've never been good at pretending. In college, I failed an acting elective so spectacularly, my professor suggested I pursue literally any other interest. Yet here I was, giving the performance of my life. You look stunning, birthday girl. Aurora squeezed my arm as she handed me a glass of champagne. 30 looks good on you. I forced my lips into what I hoped resembled a smile. Thanks for coming. Are you okay? Aurora's eyebrows knitted together. You seem off. Just overwhelmed. You know how I feel about being the center of attention. The lie slipped out easily, surprising me. Across the room, Jake chatted with a group of his co-workers, laughing too loudly at something someone said. He'd changed into the blue button-down I'd bought him last Christmas, the one that matched his eyes. I wondered if he'd chosen it deliberately, a final twist of the knife. Well, you pulled off an amazing party, Aurora said, scanning the crowded apartment. The food is incredible. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I'd spent the hours between Jake's morning bombshell and the first guests arriving in a state of numb automation, showering, dressing, applying makeup with mechanical precision while my mind raced in useless circles. The caterers had asked me questions I couldn't remember answering. Jake had stayed out of my way, retreating to his home office with mumbled excuses about work emails. Bianca, Aurora was staring at me. Did you hear what I said? Sorry, what? I asked if you and Jake were still planning that trip to Bali next month. The question hit me like a slap. Our 10th anniversary trip, the one we'd been saving for, planning for over a year. The one Jake had apparently never intended to take. We're reconsidering our options, I managed. Aurora's phone buzzed. She glanced down, then back at me with an odd expression. Hey, have you talked to Delaney tonight? Delaney? I scanned the room for my colleague. I'm not sure she's here yet. Oh, Aurora took a long sip of her drink. I just thought... Never mind. Something in her tone made me pause. What about Delaney? Aurora hesitated. It's probably nothing. Just office gossip. About? She lowered her voice. People have seen her and Jake together. Outside of work events, I mean. The room seemed to tilt slightly. What people? Seen them where? At that new wine bar on 7th twice last month. Aurora's eyes were full of concern. I didn't want to say anything, especially tonight, but... Excuse me. I cut her off, suddenly unable to breathe properly. Delaney. My colleague. The woman who'd sent me a text just hours ago saying she'd be a little late to my party. I moved through the crowd on autopilot, nodding at birthday wishes, accepting hugs I couldn't feel. My mind was piecing together 100 small moments. Jake mentioning running into Delaney at coffee shops, Delaney asking casual questions about my marriage, the time I'd found a woman's earring in our car that Jake had dismissed as probably belonging to the previous owner. We'd bought that car new. I found myself in our bedroom, door locked, sitting on the edge of the bed Jake and I had shared for 5 years. With shaking hands, I pulled the USB drive from my jewelry box where I'd hidden it. My laptop whirred to life. I plugged in the drive, my stomach clenching as I clicked through folders until I found the divorce agreement. Skimming the legal jargon, certain phrases jumped out at me. Irreconcilable differences, equitable distribution, no-fault divorce, no fault. As if 7 years could end with no one to blame. A knock at the door startled me. "Bianca?" Jake's voice. "People are asking for you. It's almost time for the cake." I closed the laptop but didn't move. "I'll be out in a minute." "Are you okay?" The concern in his voice made me want to scream. "Fantastic, just taking a breather." Silence then. "I know this is hard. I'm trying to make it easier. By serving me divorce papers on my birthday," I hissed through the door. "Or by fucking my colleague for 8 months." Another pause. "Who told you about Delaney?" So it was true. Hearing him confirm it sent a wave of nausea through me. "Does it matter?" I asked. "Were you ever going to tell me? Or was I supposed to figure it out when she showed up wearing my wedding ring?" "It wasn't like that." His voice dropped lower. "It just happened." "Things don't just happen, Jake. You made choices. Every single day for 8 months, you chose her." "Bianca, please, go back to the party," I cut him off. "I'll be out for the cake." After his footsteps faded, I reopened the laptop and continued scrolling through the documents. Financial statements, property assessments, bank records. Jake had been thorough, too thorough. Something caught my eye. A transaction history for an account I didn't recognize. Regular transfers. Always the same amount, always on the 15th of each month. The first transfer dated back exactly 8 months. I checked our joint account statements. Identical withdrawals on the same dates. My hands stopped shaking. The hurt and shock crystallized into something harder, colder. Jake hadn't just been cheating, he'd been funding it with our money we'd saved together, planned a future with. I closed the laptop and stood, smoothing my dress. In the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Eyes too bright, smile too fixed. But something had changed in the last 5 minutes. The devastation was still there, but beneath it, something new was taking root. I unlocked the door and rejoined my birthday party, scanning the room until I spotted Flynn, Jake's best friend since college. Flynn, who worked at the same investment firm as Jake. Flynn, who might know exactly how deep this betrayal went. As the crowd began singing Happy Birthday, I locked eyes with him across the room. Something in my expression must have alarmed him, because he frowned slightly, tilting his head in silent question. I smiled back, a real smile this time, because I'd just decided, if Jake wanted a divorce, I'd give him one. But it would be on my terms, not his. The morning after my birthday, I woke up alone in our bed. Jake had slept on the couch, his choice, not mine. I lay there for a moment staring at the ceiling, the events of the previous day washing over me in nauseating waves. Divorce papers, Delaney, secret bank accounts. I'd gone through the motions last night, smiled for photos, thanked guests, even managed to look appropriately surprised when Jake presented the cake. No one suspected the birthday girl was plotting revenge between blowing out candles and opening gifts. No one except Flynn, perhaps. I reached for my phone and scrolled to his text from late last night. "Whatever's going on with you and Jake, I'm here if you need to talk." I typed back, "Coffee? Today?" His response came almost immediately. "Name the place." 90 minutes later, I sat across from Flynn at a cafe 15 miles from our neighborhood, far enough that we wouldn't run into anyone we knew. I'd chosen it deliberately, just as I'd deliberately worn sunglasses despite the overcast day, just as I'd deliberately parked 3 blocks away. "You look like hell," Flynn said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Thanks. That's exactly what every woman wants to hear the day after turning 30. I removed my sunglasses, knowing my red-rimmed eyes would tell their own story. Flynn's expression softened. "What happened, Bianca?" I took a deep breath. "Jake asked for a divorce. Yesterday morning. Happy birthday to me." Flynn didn't look surprised. The realization hit me like a punch to the stomach. "You knew," I said flatly. He stared down at his coffee. "I knew things weren't good. I didn't know he was going to blindside you like that." Did you know about Delaney? His silence was answer enough. How long have you known? My voice sounded eerily calm, even to my own ears. A few months. He swore me to secrecy. Flynn finally looked up. I told him he was making a mistake. But you didn't tell me. He's my best friend, Bianca. And what am I? Flynn reached across the table, but I pulled my hands away. I'm sorry, he said. I should have warned you. Yes, you should have. I blinked back tears. Do you know about the money too? His brow furrowed. What money? I pulled out my phone and showed him the screenshots I'd taken of the transaction history. He's been moving funds from our joint account to a separate one, 8 months of regular transfers. Flynn studied the screen, his frown deepening. This isn't right. No shit. No, I mean... He hesitated. Look, I shouldn't be telling you this, but Jake's been having cash flow problems at work. Commission cuts, bad investments. He told me he was pulling from his personal savings to stay afloat. These aren't personal savings, Flynn. This is our joint account. Money we saved together. My voice cracked. For our future. I didn't know that part. Flynn ran a hand through his hair. Jesus, Bianca, I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't help me now. I took back my phone. I need information. I need to know what I'm dealing with before I talk to a lawyer. A lawyer? Flynn looked alarmed. Are you sure that's necessary? Maybe you two could... He's been sleeping with my colleague and draining our accounts for 8 months. What exactly do you think we could work out? Flynn fell silent. I need your help, I said, leaning forward. You work with him. You have access to things I don't. You're asking me to spy on my best friend. I'm asking you to help me protect myself from someone who's already betrayed me in the worst possible way. I held his gaze. Would you do any less if you were me? Flynn stared at me for a long moment. What do you need? Information on his finances, client lists, anything that might tell me where the money's really going. That's confidential information, Bianca. I could lose my job, and I could lose everything. The tears I'd been holding back finally spilled over. He's had months to prepare for this. I got one day. Flynn's expression softened. He reached out again, and this time, I let him take my hand. I'll see what I can do, but Bianca, be careful. Jake isn't stupid. If he realizes what you're doing, he won't. I wiped my eyes. As far as Jake knows, I'm still in shock. The devastated wife who never saw it coming. Weren't you? In shock? I pulled my hand away. That was yesterday. Today I'm angry. When I got home, Jake was packing a suitcase. He looked up when I entered the bedroom, his expression unreadable. Where were you? He asked. Out. I leaned against the doorframe, watching him fold a shirt I'd bought him for his last birthday. Where are you going? I thought it would be easier if I stayed somewhere else for a while. With Delaney? He winced. A hotel. How considerate. I moved to my dresser, pretending to search for something. Have you looked at the divorce papers yet? Not yet. Jake zipped the suitcase. Have you? I glanced at them. I turned to face him. I'll need time to review everything with a lawyer. Something flickered in his eyes. Concern. Fear. I was hoping we could keep lawyers out of it. Keep things amicable. Amicable, I repeated. Like how you amicably fucked my colleague for 8 months, or how you amicably drained our joint account. It's not what you think, Bianca. Then explain it to me. I crossed my arms. Explain why you've been moving money every month since your affair started. Jake's face paled slightly. You've been checking my transactions? Our transactions, from our joint account. I stepped closer. What did you think would happen, Jake? That I'd just sign whatever you put in front of me without looking at it? He picked up his suitcase. We can discuss this later, when things are calmer. When I'm calmer, you mean? When we're both calmer. He moved toward the door, then paused. I never meant to hurt you, Bianca. I laughed, a harsh sound that surprised even me. That might be the biggest lie you've told yet. After he left, I sat on the edge of the bed, trembling with rage and something else, determination. I pulled out my phone and called Aurora. I need a lawyer, I said when she answered. A really good one. Bianca, what's happening? Jake's leaving me. The words still felt strange in my mouth, and I think he's been stealing from me. Aurora's sharp intake of breath was audible. I'm coming over. Don't do anything until I get there. I hung up and walked to Jake's closet. The safe was hidden behind his winter coats, a small fireproof box where we kept our important documents. I knew the combination. The day we met, the day he proposed, the day we married. Inside were our passports, birth certificates, marriage license, and a small black notebook I'd never seen before. I flipped it open, my heart pounding as I scanned the pages filled with Jake's handwriting. Names, dates, amounts, and at the top of the first page, a single word that made my blood run cold. Investments. It's a Ponzi scheme, Aurora said, flipping through Jake's notebook, or something close to it. We sat at my kitchen table, empty wine glasses between us, takeout containers pushed aside. Aurora had arrived an hour after my call, armed with a bottle of red and fierce loyalty. Now, 3 hours later, the picture emerging was worse than I'd imagined. How can you tell? I asked. My ex handled fraud cases, remember? Aurora tapped the page. These columns show money coming in from new investors to pay returns to earlier ones. Classic pyramid structure. My stomach churned. So he's not just cheating on me, he's committing fraud. Looks that way. Aurora closed the notebook. Bianca, this is serious. If Jake's running an investment scam, you could be implicated. But I didn't know anything about it. You're his wife. You share accounts, property, tax returns. She squeezed my hand. The lawyer I'm connecting you with specializes in both divorce and financial fraud. You need protection. I stared at the notebook, my mind racing. What if I could prove he did this without my knowledge? That would help, but what if I could prove he did it and turn over evidence? Aurora's eyes widened. You mean report him? Why not? He betrayed me in every possible way. My voice hardened. Why should I protect him? Because this isn't just about divorce anymore. We're talking potential criminal charges. Aurora leaned forward. Are you sure you want to go there? Was I? The Jake I thought I knew, the man I'd built a life with, was already gone, replaced by a stranger who lied, cheated, and apparently stole. What loyalty did I owe that stranger? I need to think, I said finally. After Aurora left, I couldn't sleep. I paced our apartment, no, my apartment now, trying to process everything. Around 3 a.m., I found myself in Jake's home office, staring at his desk. I'd never invaded his privacy before, even when suspicions occasionally flared over the years, late nights, unexplained absences, I'd trusted him. What a fool I'd been. His computer was gone, taken with him, but the filing cabinet remained. I tried the drawer. Locked. I searched the room, looking for where he might hide a key. Nothing in the desk drawers. Nothing on the bookshelves. I was about to give up when I noticed the framed photo of us on the wall. Our wedding day, both of us laughing as we fed each other cake. I lifted the frame. There, taped to the back, was a small key. The filing cabinet opened with a soft click. Inside were folders labelled with clients' names. Some I recognised, others unfamiliar. I pulled out a random folder and found investment agreements, signed contracts, bank statements. My phone buzzed with a text. Flynn, you awake? I hesitated, then replied, yes. Jake called me. He's suspicious, says you found something. My heart raced. Did you tell him anything? Of course not, but be careful. He's not stupid. I stared at the message, then at the files in my hands. Flynn was right. Jake was smart. If he suspected I was investigating him, he might destroy evidence or move assets beyond my reach. I needed to act fast, but carefully. Thanks for the warning, I texted back. Meeting with a lawyer tomorrow. I spent the next hour photographing documents, careful to return each to its exact place. By dawn, I had hundreds of images, evidence of Jake's scheme, proof of his deception. I finally fell into an exhausted sleep on the couch, waking to my alarm at 7 a.m. I had to go to work, had to maintain normalcy while my world imploded. The office felt surreal, colleagues chatting about weekend plans, complaining about deadlines, completely unaware that my life had shattered. I nodded through conversations, smiled at appropriate moments, all while scanning the room for Delaney. She wasn't there. Delaney called in sick, my supervisor mentioned casually. Can you cover her client meeting at 2? The irony wasn't lost on me. Sure, I said, my voice steady despite the rage bubbling beneath the surface. At lunch, I met with Marissa, the lawyer Aurora had recommended, a sharp-eyed woman with a reputation for ruthlessness in divorce cases. Financial fraud complicates things, she said after I'd explained the situation. If your husband is charged criminally, it could freeze assets you're entitled to in the divorce. So what do I do? Document everything, but carefully. We need to establish your innocence while securing your financial interests. She tapped her pen against her notepad. Do you have access to the accounts he's been using for these investments? Not yet, but I might be able to get it. Marissa gave me a measured look. Legally, as his spouse, you have rights to joint assets, but accessing accounts he's deliberately hidden from you enters a grey area. What if someone gave me the access information? Someone who has it legitimately? That would depend on who and how. Her eyes narrowed. What are you thinking? I thought of Flynn, of his access to the firm's systems, of his apparent willingness to help me. Just exploring options. Back at the office, I found an email from Jake. We need to talk. Dinner tonight? My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Playing along might give me more time to gather evidence. Refusing might make him suspicious. Where? I typed back. That Italian place you like. 7 p.m. The restaurant where he'd proposed. Was that deliberate? A manipulation to soften me up? Okay, I replied, then immediately texted Flynn. Jake wants to meet for dinner. What's he planning? Flynn's response came quickly. Don't know, but he was in the office earlier, removing files from his computer. Something spooked him. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. Had Jake realized his notebook was missing? Had he noticed the filing cabinet had been opened? My phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. Is this Bianca? A woman's voice asked when I answered. Yes. Who's this? A pause. It's Delaney. My body went cold. We need to talk. It's not what you think. I think you've been sleeping with my husband for 8 months, I said, keeping my voice low despite the empty break room. What part of that isn't what I think? The part where I'm not the only one, she said, and the part where I can help you take him down. I met Delaney at a coffee shop across town, choosing a back corner table where we wouldn't be seen. She looked terrible, eyes puffy, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, none of her usual polished confidence. Thank you for meeting me, she said, her hands wrapped tightly around her mug. I'm not here for pleasantries, I said. You said you weren't the only one. What did you mean? Delaney took a deep breath. Jake has been seeing at least 3 women that I know of, me, someone named Vanessa, and another woman I only know as Kay. The floor seemed to shift beneath me. One affair I could almost understand. A moment of weakness, a connection that shouldn't have happened. But 3? That was a pattern, a strategy. How do you know this? I asked, fighting to keep my voice steady. I found messages on his phone about 2 months ago. When I confronted him, he said they were just friends, but I knew he was lying. She looked down. I should have ended it then. I should have told you. Yes, you should have. The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. Why didn't you? He said he was leaving them. Leaving them for me. A tear slid down her cheek. God, I was so stupid. We both were. I pushed a napkin toward her. You said you could help me take him down. How? Delaney wiped her eyes. Jake used me. Not just personally, professionally. He had me introduce him to my clients, vouch for his investment opportunities. My stomach dropped. Your clients invested with him? She nodded miserably. 3 of them. Over $200,000 combined. Did you invest? 50,000 teules, my entire savings. Her voice cracked. He promised returns that seemed too good to be true. And they were. I thought of the notebook, the files, the pattern Aurora had identified. It's a Ponzi scheme. I realized that last week. When I asked to withdraw some of my money, he kept making excuses. Delaney met my eyes. Yesterday, after your party, I pressed him again. He admitted there were cash flow issues. That's when I knew. And that's when you called in sick today, she nodded. I couldn't face anyone, especially you. Part of me wanted to hate her, this woman who'd slept with my husband, who'd kept his secrets. But looking at her now, I saw only another victim of Jake's manipulation. What exactly are you offering, Delaney? Evidence. Texts, emails, records of the investments he solicited through me. She pulled out her phone, and I'm willing to go to the authorities. I considered her offer. More evidence would strengthen my position both legally and financially. But involving authorities would escalate everything, possibly before I was ready. I need time to think, I said finally. I'm meeting with Jake tonight. Delaney's eyes widened. Be careful. When I confronted him, he got scary. Not violent, but cold, like a switch flipped and he became someone else. Her words sent a chill through me. Had I ever truly known my husband? I can handle Jake, I said, with more confidence than I felt. The Italian restaurant was busy, the familiar scent of garlic and tomato sauce filling the air. Jake was already seated at our usual table by the window, the one where he'd proposed 7 years ago. He stood when he saw me, his face carefully neutral. You look nice, he said as I sat down. I'd chosen my outfit deliberately, a blue dress he'd always liked, hair down the way he preferred. Not for him, but for the role I needed to play. Thanks, I smiled tightly. Why did you want to meet? Jake signaled the waiter ordering wine without consulting me. I think we got off on the wrong foot with all this. The divorce doesn't have to be contentious. You handed me divorce papers on my birthday, Jake. How did you expect me to react? I know the timing was bad. He had the decency to look embarrassed. I'm sorry about that. The waiter returned with wine. Jake waited until he left before continuing. Bianca, I want to be fair. The settlement I proposed gives you the apartment, your car, and a generous financial package. In exchange for what? I asked, not touching my wine. A clean break. No lawyers, no drawn-out legal battle. His eyes met mine. No questions about my business dealings. There it was, the real reason for this dinner, this performance of reasonableness. You're worried about what I found, I said quietly. Jake's expression didn't change, but his knuckles whitened around his wine glass. I don't know what you're talking about. The notebook, Jake, the files, the money transfers. I leaned forward. The other women. A flicker of surprise crossed his face before he controlled it. You've been busy. So have you. 3 affairs simultaneously. That must have been exhausting. It wasn't like that. He sighed, dropping the pretense. Look, my personal life is separate from our divorce settlement. What matters is resolving this quickly and quietly. Because you're afraid of what happens if we don't. I took a sip of wine, watching him over the rim of my glass. If your investors find out what you've been doing with their money, Jake's face hardened. Be very careful, Bianca. You don't understand what you're getting into. Explain it to me, then. He glanced around, then lowered his voice. The market turned. Investments that should have paid off didn't. I had to cover losses, keep clients happy until things recovered. By using new clients' money to pay earlier investors. I shook my head. That's fraud, Jake. It's temporary reallocation during a market correction. His tone was defensive. Everyone does it. Does Delaney know that? Or Vanessa? Or Kay? Whoever she is? Jake's eyes narrowed. You've been talking to Delaney. She came to me. She knows what you're doing. And what exactly does she think she knows? His voice was dangerously soft. Enough to go to the authorities. I met his gaze steadily. Unless what? Unless you give me what I want in the divorce. Everything I want. Jake studied me for a long moment, then smiled, a cold smile I'd never seen before. You're blackmailing me. I'm negotiating. I stood up, leaving my wine untouched. Think about it. I'll give you 3 days. As I walked out, my phone buzzed with a text from Flynn. Jake emptied the joint account, all of it. Call me. I stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, my heart pounding. Jake hadn't come to dinner to negotiate. He'd come to distract me while he moved the last of our money. And I'd just shown my hand. "He can't do that," I said, pacing Flynn's living room. That money was mine too. Flynn watched me from his couch, concern etched on his face. "Technically, he can. Joint accounts mean either party can withdraw funds." $70,000, Flynn. Our entire savings. My voice cracked. "How is this legal?" "It's not ethical, but it's legal." Flynn ran a hand through his hair. "The good news is it creates a paper trail. Your lawyer can use this to show he's acting in bad faith." I laughed bitterly. "Great. I'll be vindicated while I'm living on the street." "You won't be on the street. The apartment's in both your names and you're still employed." Flynn hesitated. "And I'm here for you." I stopped pacing to look at him. In the 7 years I'd known Flynn as Jake's best friend, I'd never been alone with him like this. In his apartment at midnight, both of us raw with emotion. There was something disconcerting about seeing him separate from Jake, like a planet that had broken free of its sun. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. "Jake's been your friend since college." Flynn met my gaze steadily. "Because what he's doing is wrong. And because—" he trailed off. "Because what?" "Because I've always cared about you, Bianca. More than I should have." The admission hung in the air between us. I felt a flicker of something, surprise, confusion, a strange warmth, before reality crashed back. "I can't deal with that right now," I said honestly. "I know," Flynn nodded. "I shouldn't have said anything. Let's focus on what matters, stopping Jake before he hurts more people." My phone buzzed with a text from Delaney. "Jake called. Wants to meet tomorrow. Says he can return my investment. Should I go?" "It's a trap," Flynn said, reading over my shoulder. "He's trying to buy her silence. Or worse." I remembered Delaney's words. When I confronted him, he got scary. "I need to warn her." I called Delaney, putting her on speaker so Flynn could hear. "Don't meet him alone," I said when she answered. "He emptied our joint account tonight. He's desperate." "What should I do?" Delaney's voice was small, frightened. Flynn leaned toward the phone. "Tell him you'll meet, but in a public place. Stall him." "Who's that?" Delaney asked. "Flynn," I explained. "Jake's friend. He's helping me." A pause. "Can we trust him?" I looked at Flynn, at the determination in his eyes. "Yes," I said. "I think we can." After hanging up, Flynn pulled out his laptop. "We need to move fast. Jake knows we're onto him, and he's liquidating assets." "How do you know?" "I checked the firm's system before you arrived. He's been moving client funds all day." Flynn typed rapidly. "If we're going to stop him, we need leverage." "What kind of leverage?" "Information." Flynn turned the screen toward me. "Client lists, account numbers, transaction histories, everything he's been hiding." I stared at the screen, at columns of names and numbers. "Is this legal?" "No." Flynn's expression was grim. "But neither is what Jake's doing. These are real people, Bianca. People who trusted him with their life savings." The weight of it all suddenly crashed down on me. This wasn't just about my broken marriage anymore. It wasn't even about Jake's betrayal. Real people would lose everything if Jake wasn't stopped. "What do we do with this information?" I asked. "We take it to your lawyer, and, if necessary, to the authorities." Flynn closed the laptop. "But first, we need to secure your position." "How?" "By beating Jake at his own game." Dawn found me back in my apartment, exhausted but clear-headed. Flynn's plan was risky, possibly crossing ethical lines, but I couldn't see another option. Jake had forced my hand. I showered and dressed carefully, professional, polished, nothing that would hint at the turmoil of the past few days. At precisely 8:30 a.m., I walked into my bank. "I'd like to speak with a manager," I told the teller. "It's regarding possible fraudulent activity on my accounts." 20 minutes later, I sat across from a concerned bank manager, documents spread between us. Marriage certificate, identification, bank statements showing the sudden withdrawal. Ms., I corrected. "I'm in the process of divorcing." "Ms. Bianca," he amended. "While I sympathize with your situation, your husband had legal access to those funds." "I understand that." I slid forward the documents Flynn had helped me prepare. What I'm concerned about are these other accounts. The manager frowned, reviewing the papers. These accounts aren't with our bank. No, but they're linked to accounts that are. My husband has been moving money between them as part of an investment fraud scheme. I kept my voice steady. I'm reporting this to protect myself from liability and to protect your bank from potential involvement in criminal activity. His expression changed from skepticism to concern. These are serious allegations. Yes, they are, which is why I've already scheduled a meeting with financial crimes investigators. This wasn't strictly true yet. I wanted to give your institution the courtesy of advance notice. By the time I left the bank, I had accomplished what Flynn and I had planned, creating an official record of my concerns, separating myself from Jake's activities, and most importantly, freezing the remaining joint accounts Jake hadn't yet emptied. My phone rang as I reached my car. Jake, what did you do? He demanded when I answered. What I had to. My voice was calmer than I felt. You left me no choice. Do you have any idea what you've started? The accounts are frozen. I can't access anything. That was the point. People will lose everything, Bianca, not just me, clients, friends, people we care about. People already have lost everything, I countered. Delaney, the other investors you scammed, me. This isn't a game. His voice dropped, became dangerous. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Then enlighten me. Who's Kay, Jake? Another girlfriend? Another victim? A long pause. Where are you right now? The question sent a chill through me. Why? Because we need to talk. In person. Immediately. I don't think so. Bianca. Something in his tone made me pause. There are things you don't understand. Dangerous things. You need to stop this now before people get hurt. The only person getting hurt is you, I said. But doubt crept in. Jake sounded genuinely frightened. It's not me I'm worried about. His voice dropped lower. Check your email. Now. I hung up and opened my email on my phone. A new message from Jake contained a single attachment. A photo. My sister Reagan sitting at a cafe, unaware she was being photographed. A text followed. She has no idea what you've done. What it might cost her. My hands shook so badly I could barely dial Flynn's number. He's threatening my sister, I said when he answered, my voice barely a whisper. Where are you? Flynn asked, urgency sharpening his tone. In my car, outside the bank. I stared at the photo of Reagan, trying to determine when it had been taken. Flynn, he knows where she is. Don't move. I'm coming to you. I hung up and immediately called Reagan. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. My phone buzzed with another text from Jake. 1 hour. Our apartment. Come alone or I call my associate. Associate. The word sent ice through my veins. This wasn't just Jake anymore. He had help. Connections I knew nothing about. And they were watching my sister. Flynn arrived in 15 minutes, his face grim as I showed him the messages. This changes everything, he said. We need to call the police. And tell them what? That my husband sent me a photo of my sister? I shook my head. They won't do anything until someone actually gets hurt. Then we need to warn Reagan. I've tried. She's not answering. My voice cracked. Flynn, I have to meet him. That's exactly what he wants. I don't have a choice. I looked at my watch. 40 minutes. I need to go home and face him. Flynn grabbed my arm. Not alone. I'm coming with you. He said to come alone. I'll stay out of sight. But I'm not letting you face him by yourself. The drive to my apartment felt surreal, like I was watching someone else navigate through traffic, someone else's hands gripping the steering wheel too tightly. Flynn followed in his car, staying several vehicles behind as we'd planned. I tried Reagan again, voicemail. I left a message. Call me as soon as you get this. It's an emergency. As I parked outside our building, another text arrived from Jake. Come up. Door's unlocked, Flynn called. I'm parked down the block. I'll give you 10 minutes, then I'm coming in. If anything happens to Reagan, it won't, he said firmly. We'll fix this. I took the elevator to our floor, my heart hammering against my ribs. The hallway stretched before me longer than I remembered. Our door, my door, stood slightly ajar. I pushed it open slowly. Jake sat at our dining table, a laptop open before him, looking strangely calm. No sign of anyone else. "Where's Reagan?" I demanded, not moving from the doorway. "Safe, for now." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit down, Bianca." I remained standing. "If you've hurt her, I haven't touched her. This isn't about hurting anyone." Jake's voice was eerily controlled. "It's about fixing the mess you've created." "The mess I've created?" Anger flared, momentarily overriding my fear. "You stole from me, from your clients. You cheated with multiple women. You threatened my sister." "I did what was necessary." Jake's expression hardened. "Do you have any idea what you've done by freezing those accounts? People are expecting their returns. Important people. Your Ponzi scheme is falling apart. That's not my problem." Jake laughed, a hollow sound. "You think this is just about bad investments? This is bigger than you understand. Then explain it to me." I finally moved to the table, standing behind the chair he'd indicated. "Who's Kay?" Something flickered in Jake's eyes. "You don't want to know." "I think I do." Jake sighed, running a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my chest ache despite everything. "Constantine. He provided the initial capital for my investment fund. And? And he expects his money back. With interest." Jake looked up at me, real fear in his eyes. "He's not someone you disappoint." The pieces clicked into place. "Money laundering. That's what this is, isn't it? You're cleaning money for someone dangerous." Jake didn't deny it. "It started small, just a favor for a friend of a client. Then it grew. And the affairs? Were they just favors too? Vanessa is Constantine's sister. The relationship was expected. Jake at least had the decency to look ashamed. Delaney was a mistake. A real one. And the third woman. There is no third woman. Just Vanessa and Delaney." I thought of the notebook, the mysterious K listed alongside regular payments. "You're lying." "Bianca, listen to me." Jake leaned forward. "You need to unfreeze those accounts. Tell the bank it was a misunderstanding. We can still fix this." "There's no we anymore, Jake." "Then do it for Reagan." His voice hardened. "Constantine's people are watching her right now. One call from me and you wouldn't." But looking at this stranger who wore my husband's face, I wasn't certain. "I don't want to, but I will if I have to." Jake pushed the laptop toward me. "Bank website's already open. Log in and reverse what you did." My mind raced. If I complied, Jake would continue his scheme, continue hurting people. If I refused, Reagan might pay the price. I needed time, needed help. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from Flynn. "Coming in, get ready." I took a deep breath and sat down. Show me Reagan is safe first. A phone call right now. Jake hesitated, then nodded. He pulled out his phone and dialed, putting it on speaker. "Hello?" Reagan's voice filled the room. "Reagan, it's me," I said quickly. "Are you okay?" "Bianca, yeah, I'm fine. I'm at work." "Why?" "Where were you this morning? Around 9? "Coffee shop on 5th, then yoga. Why? What's going on?" Jake ended the call, his expression unreadable. "Satisfied?" I nodded slowly, buying time. "The photo? It was from this morning? Does it matter? You know I'm serious now." "I know you're desperate." I reached for the laptop, pretending to comply. "But so am I." In one swift motion, I grabbed the laptop and hurled it against the wall. It shattered with a satisfying crash just as the front door burst open. Flynn rushed in, followed by 2 people in suits, the financial crimes investigators I'd contacted after leaving the bank. "Jacob," one of them said, "we have some questions about your investment activities." Jake stared at me, betrayal and fury warring in his eyes. "You set me up." "No, Jake." I stood, suddenly feeling stronger than I had in days. "You did that all by yourself." The investigators led Jake away in handcuffs, his face a mask of cold fury. He didn't look back at me, not once. 7 years of marriage, and he walked out of our home. Out of my life, without a single glance. I stood in the wreckage of our living room, the shattered laptop a fitting metaphor for everything else that had broken beyond repair. "You okay?" Flynn asked, his hand warm on my shoulder. "No," I answered honestly, "but I will be." The next few days passed in a blur of statements and signatures. Jake was charged with multiple counts of fraud and money laundering. His associate Constantine was already under federal investigation, and Jake's arrest provided the final evidence they needed. Vanessa disappeared, likely fled the country, according to the investigators. Delaney cooperated fully, turning over all her communications with Jake. She stopped by my office a week after his arrest, hovering awkwardly in my doorway. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said. "I just wanted you to know I'm leaving the company. It's the least I can do." I studied her face, the dark circles under her eyes, the weight she'd lost. "You were a victim too, Delaney. Not like you." She twisted her hands together. "I knew he was married. I chose to ignore it because I wanted to believe he'd leave you for me. That's not something I can blame on Jake." Her honesty surprised me. "What will you do now?" "Move back home for a while. Start over." She attempted a smile. "The investigators think we might get some of our money back eventually. I hope so." I meant it, despite everything. After she left, I sat at my desk, staring at the framed photo I still hadn't removed. Jake and me on our honeymoon, laughing on a beach at sunset. I finally placed it face down in my drawer. Not thrown away, but no longer defining my present. That evening, I met Aurora for dinner. She'd been my rock through everything, fielding calls from concerned friends, bringing groceries when I couldn't face the store, sitting with me through sleepless nights. "The lawyer called," I told her as we settled into our booth. "The divorce will be finalized soon given the circumstances, and they've located most of the money Jake moved from our joint account." "That's something at least." Aurora squeezed my hand. "How are you really doing?" I considered the question. "I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm embarrassed for not seeing what was happening." "You couldn't have known." "Couldn't I?" I shook my head. "There were signs. I chose not to see them because the truth was too painful. That's not weakness, Bianca. It's human nature." "Maybe." I sipped my wine. "But I'm done ignoring red flags. Done making excuses for people who don't deserve them." Aurora studied me. "You've changed." "Had to." I smiled slightly. "Turns out divorce papers make excellent wake-up calls." Later that night, I returned to my apartment. Mine alone now, Jake's belongings removed by his lawyer. The emptiness felt strange, but not entirely unwelcome. I kicked off my shoes and padded to the kitchen where a stack of mail waited. Among the bills and sympathy cards was a thick envelope from Jake's investment firm. Inside, I found account statements and a handwritten note from Flynn. "Thought you should have these. Call me when you're ready." The statements revealed something I hadn't known, an account in my name containing nearly $200,000. Money Jake had apparently set aside, separate from his schemes. A nest egg, or perhaps a contingency plan. My phone rang, startling me. Reagan. "I just heard from Mom," she said when I answered. "Is it true? Jake's going to prison?" "Probably." I sank onto the couch. "The evidence is overwhelming." "God, Bianca, I still can't believe it." She paused. "Mom's worried about you. She thinks you should come stay with them for a while." "I'm not running home to hide." The firmness in my voice surprised even me. "This is my home, my life. I'm not abandoning it because Jake betrayed me." "That's my big sister." I could hear the smile in Reagan's voice. "Strong as hell." After we hung up, I returned to the financial documents, studying them with new understanding. Jake had hidden money, but he'd put it in my name, protected it from his creditors, from Constantine, perhaps even from himself. His final gift? Or his final manipulation? I thought of Jake's face when the investigators arrived, the shock, the anger, but also something else. Relief, perhaps. As if some part of him had wanted to be caught, wanted it all to end. The next morning, I woke early and did something I'd been avoiding. I opened the safe where we'd kept our most important documents. Inside, beside our marriage certificate and property deeds, I found a sealed envelope with my name on it, Jake's handwriting. I almost threw it away unopened. What could he possibly say that would matter now? But curiosity won out. Inside was a single page, dated 3 days before my birthday. Bianca, by the time you read this, you'll hate me. You should. What I've done is unforgivable. I started with good intentions that curdled into something ugly. Each compromise made the next one easier. The money in the Horizon account is yours. Clean, legitimate. Take it and build something new. I loved you, that wasn't a lie, but you deserved better than the man I became. J. I read it twice, searching for manipulation, for lies. Found none. I folded the letter and placed it back in the safe. Not forgiveness, I wasn't ready for that. But perhaps understanding. Jake had made his choices. Now I would make mine. I picked up my phone and dialed Flynn's number. "I got your package," I said when he answered. "Thank you." "You're welcome." A pause. "How are you doing?" "I'm rebuilding," I said, looking around at the apartment that was now truly mine. One day at a time. Not starting over, not going back, rebuilding with the strength I'd always had and the wisdom I'd painfully earned.